Welcome back to Amazonia. My name's Amanda, and today we're going to be focusing on our next lesson, which is the emergent layer in the rainforest. So you'll see I'm stood in our Amazonia gardens here, where we have got lots of trees and plants. You'll see behind me we've got some very tall bamboo, a very popular tree that grows in the tropics. And if you can try and imagine yourself, try and transport yourself to the actual rainforest, we need to imagine just how tall the trees are there. And the trees in the rainforest, and where especially they're growing in the emergent layer, they can get to 60 to 70 meters in height, which is a huge height for a tree. Here in Amazonia, probably estimate the trees, some of them will maybe get to about 7 or 8 meters. So times that by 10 and you're nearer to what the actual rainforest is like. So imagining the height of those trees in the rainforest, you might think they're quite sturdy and thick trees as well, when in fact they're actually quite spindly, extremely thin trunks, very, very thin. So at the bottom of the rainforest, they have got huge trunks sometimes, and you will come across trees that have what's called buttress roots. So we're going to show you a picture here of myself in the Indonesian rainforest, stood by a buttress root, so you can get an idea of just how huge these trunks are. And the reason that these are so huge is to support the rest of the tree. Because it's so spindly and so tall, it needs a really good base to anchor it into the rainforest soil. So we're going to go and meet some creatures much closer that you might find living in the emergent layer. And first of all, we are going to go in with our beautiful blue and gold macaws. So I'm going to mask up as I'm going to get quite close to them, and I'll be telling you all about them and what it's like in the emergent layer where they're found. Okay, so here I am in our parrot enclosure, or one of our parrot enclosures. I'm in with our blue and gold macaws. They're saying hello to you as well. So parrots, they would live very high up in the rainforest. We've talked about the canopy layer last week, the tops of the trees, but you will get the emergent layer higher up again, where certain trees, some of them will grow much taller than the canopy as well. So like I've said, up to maybe 60, 70 meters in height these trees can get to. So basically you're going to find animals that can climb really well in the emergent layer, climb right to the tops of those trees, and also fly really, really well. So let me introduce you here to our blue and gold macaws. We've got Blue and Jewel in here. So these two, they're approximately 10, 11 years old now, and that is an adult age, but very, very young for them. So blue and gold macaws, they've got an extremely long lifespan. They can live on average 70, 80 years. The oldest one that I know of, I think, got to about 106. So very, very long lifespan for an animal. And all that time, they are acting like a 3-year-old, because that's how intelligent they are as well. So extremely intelligent and extremely long-lived birds. Now they're showing off, dangling from the roof there. I'm going to try and get them down so I can chat to you a little bit more about them and basically show you how they're really well adapted to live in the rainforest, particularly at those high heights as well. So you're going to come down. I think they're intrigued by the camera, to be honest. They're showing off. Well, whilst they dangle there, I'll talk about them anyway. So blue and gold macaws, they would live in the Amazon rainforest in South America in the wild. And you'll see they're very, very good at climbing and holding on to things. You'll see with their feet here, holding on from the mesh of their enclosure. They can hold on really well, just equally as well, in the rainforest trees as well. So they don't always fly around, they're not constantly flying. They might fly for about 20 to 30 miles over the tops of the rainforest every day, but then they'll rest a lot of the time as well. So they will hold on really, really well with these feet. Now, they've got quite a special type of feet as well. Their feet are what's called zygodactyl feet. And try and remember that if you can, but it is an unusual, funny word. And it basically means having zygodactyl feet. They have 4 toes in total, 2 toes point forwards and 2 toes point backwards. So it ends up like a C-shaped foot, really, really good at holding on to things like the branches. So they've got very special adapted feet for that. Now they've got beautiful feathers all over their bodies. They've got these long tail feathers, and these tail feathers help them to balance in the trees. So the rainforest is susceptible to storms every so often, so it can get very, very windy as very wet there as well in the rainforest. So these long tail feathers, like any animal with a tail, it helps them to balance. So if it's windy, they can flick those tails side to side, up and down, and just helps them balance in the trees. So when you look at the colours of these beautiful macaws, the blues, the yellows, the greens, you might think it would be very hard actually for them to hide in the rainforest. Well, in fact, they do hide quite well as well, even though they're not just browns and greens like lots of creatures that might live in the trees. In fact, in the rainforest, you will get really brightly coloured flowers. So when they're in the tops of the trees, they will actually blend in with those as well. And you'll see they've got a nice little crown of green on the tops of their heads. So that bit will blend in really well as well with the trees. So although we think of the forest as mainly greens and browns and everything has to blend into that colour, animals can in fact be all sorts of really nice brighter colours as well and still be able to camouflage. Now, you might hear them being fairly noisy. They can make quite a racket, these birds, which is absolutely fine. It's normal, it's them communicating. In the rainforest, that call can go quite a distance, so they can communicate with each other. And where the noise is coming from, you'll see their huge beaks. So let me see if they'll come down again for a little treat. You can down. So what I'm giving them now is just a tiny little piece of peanut, which is one of their favourite foods. Their diet consists of lots of fruits, seeds and nuts, which is what they'll be looking for in the rainforest as well. And you'll see when they eat the nut, they've got it in their beaks, and their beaks are really, really big and really, really strong. So effectively, they've got a very strong nutcracker on the front of their face. So if you can see, when they eat the peanut, they've got a tongue as well. It's quite a strong, leathery tongue. That'll roll the food around, break it up for them. And if they want to eat the food, they'll swallow it. If they're a bit fussy, just like we can be, then they can spit it out. And when you shell a peanut, the actual peanut that we eat is covered in this like reddish brown skin. Now, that's thought to taste a little bit bitter to the parrots. So if you see them eat that, I'll give them see now. He's got this one with a piece of skin on. He'll roll it round in his beak, and you see it fall down. He'll get rid of that skin because he doesn't want to eat that bit, and then he'll continue eating the nice tasty piece of nut. So bearing in mind they've got these very strong beaks, we have to watch our fingers obviously working with them, because their bite can be extremely strong. It can be stronger than a dog's bite. And if they didn't want to let go, sometimes they might not. They can do a lot of damage if they wanted to with their beaks, but really it is for adapting to live in the rainforest, so they can eat their foods well. So they can even crack open things like really hard-shelled nuts, like Brazil nuts. They can just open them up without too much bother because of these nice strong beaks. So you'll see they've got these really pretty colours around their eyes as well. It looks a little bit like a zebra print. And these are completely unique to each macaw, so it's a little bit like us having a thumbprint. It's their ID. Although looking at them closely, you might think they all look very similar in their faces. Every pattern there is completely different. Now, I mentioned their tail. I was saying about it being a really good balance. So if it gets windy in the tops of the emergent layer, then they don't fall out of the trees. That wouldn't be very good. So they can balance well. But also, these tails act like a really good air brake. So imagine these birds flying over the tops of the Amazon, day in, day out. They want to slow down and stop somewhere. Well, they don't want to come to a crash landing. So what they will do is they will fan these tail feathers out nice and wide. There we go, he's showing you nicely now as he turns around. He'll fan those out, and it acts like an air brake. So they can very slowly just slow down and glide to an area in the branches that they want to stop. So very, very useful for them. Now, I'll see if they'll get you to show you their little feet a little bit better. You're going to show your foot. Oh, has he? We do some training with the macaws, so well done. He's picking his foot up there. This is good so we can do health checks on them because they're in the zoo with us. So picking up their feet, opening up their wings, there's various sort of commands that they know, and it means that we can check them over without stressing them out as well. So I don't know if you maybe saw his foot a little bit better there when I was explaining how their feet are. So the 2 toes forward and the 2 toes at the back of the perch there. So I hope you've enjoyed meeting Blue and Jewel, our blue and gold macaws. We're going to go into an area that's a little bit darker now. We've replicated the nighttime with these next animals, but it is another animal that you would find sometimes living, and it's a very good flyer, so flying through the emergent layer. So we're actually going to head through into our nocturnal area, and we're going to meet some of our fruit bats. Okay, so here I am in our fruit bat enclosure in our nocturnal area in Amazonia. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the nocturnal area of Amazonia this week because we're going to primarily focus on that next week, but I am going to be introducing you to our bats just now. So in here we've got a group of about 50, 60 Cebus fruit bats, which are a fruit bat from South America and Caribbean islands as well that they're found. Now, we're talking about the emergent layer, and I did say before that it's basically animals that are extremely good at climbing and extremely good at flying usually as well, so they can reach those really tall parts of the trees. So, extremely good at flying. Here we are with the bats. So they are mammals, so it's unusual for mammals to be able to fly, but bats are a mammal that can fly. They've got these very long wings, and their wings are a bit like the human hand. It acts the same, except in between, let's say, the fingers, they've got this thin membrane of skin. And as they fly through the air, it's a bit like us moving with our hands as if we were swimming through the air in a sense. So they're extremely good at flying, catching flight and flying through the trees, avoiding things as well, not bashing into all the branches. And you would find the bats flying through a few layers of the rainforest. So they would even fly down to and through the understory layer that we've talked about, the canopy, and also today's session, the emergent layer. Now, in my hand here, I have got one of their favourite fruits that we give them. I've got some little pieces of banana, so I will see if they'll come down a little bit closer. I think they're a little bit camera shy, they're not used to this, so we'll see. I'll just stand nice and still with this. I've got a little piece on a branch in front of me as well. So this is their favourite food. They will often come down for the banana, especially if it's really ripe and gooey. Probably not how you guys would like to eat it, but the bats, they love it like that. So like I said, the fruit bats, they would be found in forests of South America and Caribbean islands as well, like Trinidad and Tobago. And they'd be found in forests, caves, tunnels, and they are nighttime creatures. So they'll rest and roost during the day, and then they'll fly out at night. So they'll often feed for maybe 15 minutes at a time, go hunting for their food, lots and lots of fruit mainly, and they'll hunt for their food, maybe eat for about 15 minutes, and then rest, and then do that again, and do that periodically throughout the night. So here in Amazonia, we feed them 3 times a day, or 4 times actually. We give them an extra a protein feed where they get like insects as well, mealworms and waxworms and things, which is just a nice good extra boost to their diet. And we give them the rest of the feeds, lots and lots of fruits and vegetables. So our group here, they eat over 2 kilos of fruits and veg every single day, which is quite a colossal amount of fruit and veg, especially when you see the size of the bats. Their bodies really are the size of a mouse. So this species, the Cebus fruit bat, is a fairly small species of bat. So you might have heard the saying to be as blind as a bat. It is a bit of a silly saying because bats are not blind. They've got 2 eyes like ourselves, so they can see somewhat. The Cebus fruit bats, their eyes are quite small, but they have got their pair of eyes, and they've also got a nose, just like us, and a pair of ears as well. So they can sense around, not just with eyesight, but with their sense of smell and sense of hearing. They use that a lot when living in the forests. They'll also sometimes use something called echolocation. The Cebus fruit bats aren't known to use it a lot, but they will use that, which will help navigate them through the trees and branches without smacking into anything, which is always useful for them. I'm just going to sit this piece on here. As I'm moving a little bit, they might not be keen to come to it, so they might come to that banana one on the branch. So in the wild as well, they might occasionally eat insects. Being fruit bats, fruit is predominantly their diet, but they will occasionally fly around the forests looking for maybe bugs and worms and things to eat as well sometimes. So with our Cebus fruit bats, we've got a mix of males and females in here, and we do breed them fairly well each year. We'll see quite a few babies throughout the year, different times. Last week actually, I saw a young pup, that's a baby bat, a pup, and it was just starting to kind of venture off on its own, fly around a little bit, but still go back to mum for its milk. So just like ourselves, being mammals, they'll feed from the mum, survive on milk until they're weaned off that and old enough and strong enough to fly, and then go off foraging for their fruit. So I hope you've been able to see our bats a little bit closer, hopefully flying around me as I'm stood here talking about them. So another example of an animal we would find sometimes flying around the emergent layer. Other animals would include, and for example, ones like we've got in Amazonia would be the butterflies that we have. Usually through the summer months we keep those at the moment. And also things like our Amazon parrots, orange-winged Amazon parrots that we've got, and several types of monkeys will live at the tops of the rainforest as well, because although they can't fly, they're extremely good and agile at climbing in the trees. So we're going to head through very briefly into our handling room. We're going to continue on with the map that we're filling in, so we can just summarise what we've met today, who we've met today, and pop those on the map as to where they're found in the world. So I'll see you in there in a sec. So here we are back in the handling room, and just like in our other sessions, we're going to be adding the animals that we've met today onto our world map here. So I've got a small picture here of a blue and gold macaw, the first animal that we met today, living high up in the emergent layer of the Amazon. So let me just pin this one on. We'll pin it kind of with the tortoise here from the same part of the world, different layer of the rainforest, but we can see they're from South America there. And then we also met our fruit bats. Now we can sit this one a little bit higher up because they are also found in the Caribbean islands as well. So let's sit that here, Caribbean islands, South and Central America region. So there we have our Cebus fruit bats. So I do hope you've enjoyed today's session, learning all about the animals that live very high up in the top of the rainforest, the emergent layer. And please tune in next week. We're going to be learning all about our nighttime animals. So we're going to be a little bit darker, hopefully not too spooky for you, but a little bit darker going through our nighttime area. So hope you tune in to that. And we've also got activity sheets again for today. So you can download those and do those in your own time at home. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.